It's D-Day for the Liberals as the party is set to decide the fate of net zero at a special meeting. It's happening in about 20 minutes here in Canberra. Joining me live as we count down to the start of that gathering, Andrew Clennell and Trudy McIntosh. Andrew, what's going to happen?
Well, I've been predicting they're going to dump net zero in any form, and I'll get to that in a minute. But what I can reveal now is that there are two options that will be presented by Dan Tehan and basically sanctioned by Susan Lee to this Liberal Party room meeting. And those options are one with net zero and one without net zero. So there you have it, Kieran. Basically, it's still on the table, the prospect of keeping net zero, even though the numbers seem to be very much against it. Two options Dan Tehan, the Shadow Energy Minister, is going to present. But my understanding is, and I think you can just tell it from the television interviews, frankly, they're going to dump any sort of mention of net zero in their policy, but they're going to say we're about emissions reduction, and they're going to say we're still part of the Paris Agreement because the Paris Agreement is about global net zero by 2100. They're going to say Australia can have another target. They're going to say power prices are the main issue that we should be addressing. So there'll be a lot of moderate MPs who helped Susan Lee in the job who won't be happy with this. But the biggest sign to me is Alex Hawke on air this morning, basically Susan Lee's right-hand man saying we should dump net zero. I mean, that tells you everything, doesn't it? Especially because it was the moderates and the centre-right who backed Susan Lee into the job. Alex Hawke is in the centre-right. He's now moving with the right, and that's a majority of the party room. And I also think an integral element to this story, which I broke last Monday, was the Liberal leadership phone hookup that occurred after the Nationals made their decision on this. And as I reported at the time, there was only one voice on that Liberal leadership call that talked about retaining net zero and said we'd be crazy to dump it and that the Nationals have a gun to our head, and that was Anne Ruston, the Deputy Senate Leader. Everyone else, whether it was James McGrath or Angus Taylor or Micaiah Cash or James Patterson or Alex Hawke, were for dumping net zero on that call. So we'll see research from the Menzies Research Centre, I've been told, presented by Dan Tehan. Interested to see what that says. Trudy's also been reporting Andrew Hurst, the Federal Liberal Director, will give a briefing. Now, Kieran, every one of the briefings that Andrew Hurst has given that I'm aware of to the Coalition has always told them that climate change is an issue with voters. So if there's any spoke in the wheel to the hopes of Susan Lee to keep the Coalition together, or indeed the right and the centre-right to dump the net zero tag, it could be that briefing from Andrew Hurst, I reckon. There is one small other thing in the mix of that, though, and Scott Morrison, when he pulled on the net zero decision, actually took this to Cabinet. The polling generally shows people are in favour of a net zero target up to a point, up until you tell them the cost. Once you tell them any sort of cost associated with it, as the cost gets greater, the support gets lower.